Hey there, Elizabeth here, and before we get into today's episode, I thought I would just make sure you knew about my free workshop. It's called The 3 Secrets to Integrating the Arts with SEL. And if you're interested in creating some calm, dissolving those distractions, and promoting positivity in your classroom, this is definitely a workshop you want to check out. You can go to theinspiredclassroom.com/workshop and register for free right there. I hope to see you inside. We've been talking a lot about creative teacher self-care here on the Inspired Classrooms podcast, and specifically permissions that we can and should be giving ourselves when we have that feeling of overwhelm and stress and frustration and bad morale, all those things. Making sure that we remember that we can give ourselves permission to pause, permission to create. And in this episode, we're going to talk about the permission to dust off an old lesson. Here's what I mean. If you've been in teaching for any number of years, you may have some of those lessons from way back in the day, or maybe even a couple years ago, that you really enjoyed. You enjoyed teaching it. So I've been teaching for 24 years now, and I definitely have a lot of different lessons that I've done over the years. I have a few different grade levels that I've taught. I started in 2nd grade, and then I went and taught middle school music for 7 years. And then I went back to the upper elementary classroom, taught 4th grade for a number of years, and also 3rd grade. And so in those years, I have some lessons that have to do with anything from science to social studies to visual art to writing and music and all these different things. And some of them I just don't do anymore because it doesn't go with the flow of the content that I'm teaching right now. But sometimes a lesson will remind me of something that I've done in the past. Or here's another situation that I find myself in, especially in the last few years. And that is that the lessons that I'm being asked to do are very much scripted. Maybe not scripted word for word, but so organized in a way that if you stray from what you're supposed to teach day after day after day, you lose your footing and you feel behind, and it's really just not a good feeling. The language program that my school uses right now, Wit and Wisdom, it has its positive, it has its negatives. I'm not going to get into that, but I will say that the content of it is so overwhelming that if I don't stay on track, I can feel behind very quickly, and that's just not a good feeling. And yet, there are some lessons in the program that I feel like I could almost do a little bit better. And for example, I love teaching writing. I love teaching kids how to write, whether it's a sentence or a paragraph or a whole essay. I really enjoy it. And there may be ways that, the program is asking me to do this teaching that I think I could do a little bit differently. And so those are those moments where I give myself permission to go back in my files, whether they're physical files or the files inside of my mind, to go back and get some of those lessons that I know work for students. And I can get my students doing some good writing just by using a few key old lessons that I can kind of keep in my back pocket. So, for example, I'm going to see if I can even explain this one well. When my students are going over, the structure of a paragraph or even an essay for that matter, And you need a topic sentence and 3 details. I have this really weird, like graphic organizer / visual that I don't even know where it came from. It's been photocopied and photocopied so much over the years. I have no idea where it came from. But it's got this image of this big blobby type guy looking like he's doing like a split in the air. And under him are 3 smaller blobby type beings that are holding him up. And it's a visual for helping students to understand that when you have a main idea, you need to support it with 3 supporting details. The visual is very, very rudimentary, but it works. And I love doing this little lesson where, I can give them a show where I will kind of pretend I'm that big blobby guy in the top and call myself MI for main idea, and that I need some support. And so I'll say whatever my main idea is. Maybe it's something as simple as, puppies are cute. And I'll go around the room and students will ask or give a suggested supporting detail. And then I'll have one of the students support an arm of mine. And then I'll go to another student and they'll give a different supporting detail and they can support my other arm. Well, by the time I get to a third student with a third supporting detail, and that student who I carefully pick, by the way, and I give that person my foot to support, well, it just brings everybody laughing and we just have fun and talking about what is actually a supporting detail. And then, of course, if someone gives something that's not a supporting detail, well, they can't support one of my limbs. They're off topic. And it's a great way to have a little discussion about that. Point being is that lesson really puts the point home. And I feel that it is age appropriate and the way to go in terms of teaching 3rd graders or even 4th graders. I've done it with 4th graders. That's pretty fun. To really understand the concept, that particular concept with the writing. What are some lessons that you have from the past that you could dust off and give and put and just insert into what you're doing with your kids? Another idea is when you just have some lesson that you really enjoy and you haven't done it in a while, and you find yourself in that time frame where you need to give yourself permission to pause, which is what we talked about a couple episodes ago, and you need to do something that's going to kind of lift yourself up and lift your students up. You teach it well, it's an interest of yours, and of course that interest is going to just extend to your students as well. Pull that lesson out, dust it off, and use it. Just use it. I'm giving you that permission to think about if you're in that frame of mind where you need something different, where you need to kind of change things up because you can feel yourself coming to the brink of burnout. Give yourself that permission to go get one of those old lessons that really worked for you, that engaged your students, that really helped to put smiles on their faces and smiles on yours. Go ahead, do it. Go grab it, give yourself permission to pause, and then do that lesson. I can't stress enough how important it is for us to take ownership of our own teacher self-care in the classroom. And sometimes that means we need to pause. Sometimes we need to give ourselves permission to create with our students. And that might mean going and grabbing an old lesson and dusting it off and doing it for old time's sake and seeing what happens. All right, I hope that these gave you some ideas of how you can take those moments when you're feeling that pressure and feeling those big emotions, to give yourself permission to do something a little different and go a little different direction just for a moment, just to remind yourself of the reason why you went into teaching. Remind yourself of that passion you have and feed that flame. This is part of getting yourself inspired so that you can be inspiring to your students. All right, let me know what you come up with, and I can't wait to hear from you. DM me on Instagram or Facebook. I'm at The Inspired Classroom, and I can't wait to hear from you. All right, have a good rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Elizabeth Peterson. Be sure to subscribe, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you.